last year's bird here. Let's get him thawed out so we can mount it. See you in a few hours when that thaws out. The feathers that I am gonna be working on today have finally thawed. Let's get after it. So I'm gonna show you how I do it and all the materials needed to do it the way that I have started doing it. It's pretty easy. I wanna preface this because I recently learned how to do it this way. Before I was doing it a more simple way, but last year after seeing another video, I kind of understood the why behind this way of doing it and why it preserves it better, and it was really from an understanding of the anatomy of a tail feather. Once you understand how it works, you understand why this method is pretty good. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing this, and I would say this is kind of in the middle on the hard to easy scale. I've seen taxidermists take every single feather out and lay it out and create a tail feather. This way isn't that complicated, but it's not as simple as fanning it out and pouring salt all over it, which is how I previously did it. I'm gonna take this off to show you the two different ways of preserving these fans. And what's cool is actually these are both from the same year. I think I shot these 2 or 3 years ago, and they're from the same season, but they're two different styles, and you can see the difference in how well they preserve. That was the old way of doing it, where I just literally salted the crap out of it or used borax or whatever. This is the new method that I use, and you can just tell how much cleaner it is and how it holds its shape better. Like I said, these are the exact same year. Falling out of shape, it's ruffled, it just looks rough. Still holding its shape and doing pretty well, and by no means am I perfect at this. So let me show you all the materials needed to do this. So I'll show you the layers of this fan as I take them apart, and I'll show you what's necessary and unnecessary, because I used to just save the whole thing, and that's not really necessary, and it actually helps preserve it to have less. I'm not gonna be able to finish it in this video, but I have a finished product. This is a 4 or 5 day process because you have to let it sit and preserve before doing the final step. So I have one that I already finished, so I'll just cut to that one and show you how that one turned out. So yeah, we'll end up replacing this fan with this one, and this is actually a special bird to me. I shot this one last year, and it was actually a triple beard. Look at that. Pretty neat if you ask me. Look at the chickens out there. So I want to get this one on the wall. I don't need to hang every single fan. You can only fit so many in a room, and I'll actually end up turning this fan into a decoy, so it'll be repurposed. Let me show you all the materials that I use for this, and we'll get going on this project. All right, so obviously you need your fan thawed out. The beards, if you choose to keep them. Borax, which basically is like salt. It just preserves it, and it'll dry it out and make it so it doesn't go bad. I have that blade, I have another knife. I have some pins so I can pin it to this piece of cardboard. And then this is key. You need some sort of wire brush. I stole this off of my golf bag. You can probably run to Walmart and get something that's not used for golf clubs, but it actually is perfect. And then the last but not least, you need Bondo. It's just body filler. I don't know, you can get it at O'Reilly's or whatever, but that is what I use to seal all of the meat that's possibly left over, the meat and the fat. And that's what makes this one different than everything I've done before. I want to show you the anatomy of this tail so you can understand how it works, and then that way it'll make more sense once you start diving into it. So when looking at a fan, you just see big feathers, you see these longer feathers that are up front, and then there's also some feathers on the back. These are these iridescent ones. There's also some of these up front. It's really one set of feathers. You can see how it separates right there with that piece of skin or whatever it is. And then there's a second set right here. And then behind this set of feathers are the big fan that you see. And then these, like on the front, are connected as well. So we're actually gonna start off by taking these feathers off. They're on the back, you don't see them. Obviously you can if you want to. You can keep them if you want to, but it actually makes it easier to take them off. It makes it cleaner on the back side. So I'm gonna start off by just removing these. I usually will just cut the feathers so I can see down there. And then there's a lot of meat that you end up taking off and removing from there. I cleaned it off a little bit more so you can see how there's that connective tissue that connects all these ones, and there's another layer right there, connects those. So we're gonna just clear off that one. And there's gonna be part of the bone where it connects the body right there, so you gotta get that out, and that'll make everything easier. So what I did was I made those 2 cuts right there around the bone. You can see how it really got in there, and it'll kind of let your knife go in. You have to find either side, and then it'll connect up top. So that's the tailbone. That's one way to get it out. All right, so that frees it up to fan out really well. Just took out that big old piece right there. And now it's very malleable. You can see how flexible it becomes. You can see really what's holding it together. The next step is just to get all this meat off, as much of this meat as you can off. This is how it's going so far. Got a lot of the meat off on that side. I still got a lot to go around here. I'm gonna keep shaving away and mix in some of this brush just to get all that crap off, and then you're gonna see how much fat is in there. I gotta get that out as well. We're at the point where I'm satisfied. So if you're looking at it and you're going, oh, do I have to keep going? If you can see in between the, I can't think of the word. Hannah, what's the word for a feather, like the hard part? If you can look down it and you've cleaned inside each shaft pretty clean, and that you can see fat will come out, that's what's that yellow looking pussy stuff. If you get as much of that out as you can, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect because you're gonna end up putting borax all over this, so it'll, you know, take care of that and preserve it. You can see how much more malleable it is than when we first started. You know, you can bend it. It's like that part is flexible. Everything is at your control. So now we're at the point where we can position it on this piece of cardboard and we can pin it down and put borax on it in order to start the preservation process, which usually I leave for a few days, 3 days maybe. But this year I'm gonna do something different. You can see how there's a few of these iridescent feathers that look a little rough. This is the first layer of it, and it looks like that. So I'm actually gonna take these out, and I'm just gonna try to clean them, and later when I'm doing the Bondo, I'll just put them in manually and have them sit perfectly. And I'm gonna pick out these feathers, and I'm just gonna do it that way. All right, guys, we are at the point, everything's all situated, fan's clean, that layer of iridescent feathers is off. This is super malleable. At this point, I try to fluff as many of the feathers as I can. There's a few videos on YouTube about how to do that properly. I've found that they're super sensitive. Like if you try to mess with them, you could do some damage. So I try to usually like fluff them like this, just kind of reset them. The top there, that looks like a shell might have gone through that right there, broken that one, but it has some gunk on it. But I'm fine with feathers not looking perfect, to be honest with you. What I care more about is how the presentation is, like it's flat and it looks somewhat clean. Like this feather right here is bothering me though. That one's destroyed, I think. I try to just like go like that from the base Try to pull it like that. But like I said, you can do more damage if you're not careful. I think Rodney Elmer also has a video about how to clean the feathers, but to be honest with you, I can't remember. This is messed up from sitting in the bag for every year. But anyways, with these feathers up front, I just like to make sure that they're in order. See how they're sitting on top of this? It's so cool how these feathers work. This should be on top. It kind of goes back to front. It's like the, you know, middle school yearbook picture. The tallest goes in the back and then they feather in. So I'll do it like that. Before I get it actually perfect, I get these. I got a little plastic baggie, so I'm gonna put some borax in this, let this sit in it while I'm doing that. While it's out there. It's a mess, but just gonna do that. Throw these in there. I didn't cut these out, I just pulled them off, but you can see there's still a little gunk on them, so better safe than sorry. Sit them in there. It'll naturally preserve it. That will go out there. This borax is a little crunchy, so break up those bits. I'll just feather it on there. Or not just pour it on there. If it's like at all yucky, it'll stick to it. But we don't want it to be too thick where it impedes on the flattening process. Just rub it all around and get it all in there. What doesn't stay will obviously come off. Different fans want to sit different ways. I usually pull it until it kind of separates too much. Like that would be too much. Make it like, it's probably perfect around there to where the feathers want to sit, just below 180. So even that looks like it wants to sit like that. Before I go any further, I'm gonna try to bring this out to the garage where it'll sit for the next 4 days. So let's go out there. All right, for the last part of this, I'm calling an audible. I'm not using the pins. Instead, I'm using old school textbooks. And I'm gonna use those to flatten it down. So I'm gonna get this feather in front. There you go. That's pretty. Got the borax down on it. And basically, I'm just gonna flatten it. I'm gonna start here to the left and just use it as a base point. Press it down like that. Again, people are gonna tell me I'm an idiot. I don't care. Next book up on the list. Solid book, you should get it. Meat Eater book, so Stephen Ranella. Thanks, buddy. As I go along, I'm gonna make sure it's fanned out the way I want it. Go like that. Just try to place it down. Try to pinch those feathers together a little bit. All right. Last but not least, fundamental of accounting. That never was useful, so glad it's getting put to use here. Okay. Twist it after that. And this should look good. Good thing about being in the garage too. Just kind of make a mess. So now we just let it sit. So when it's done after the 4 days, it's gonna look exactly like this. Just minus the Bondo right there. You can tell how I feathered it on. I should have gone a little higher actually. You can kind of see where it's starting to get rough. I might add some more actually when I have the Bondo out. But anyway, that's how you do it. I'm sure you can imagine. I mean, that's the simplest part of this whole thing. Put some Bondo down on whatever. You just put the Bondo down and it'll harden really fast. So when I go to put the iridescent ones on, I'll just, put some Bondo, sit it on there, and kind of just pick and choose which ones look nice and create that last layer. If you made it this far, then you've basically done the whole thing. And it should look pretty good. And then if you want to do it like how I did, you can go ahead and get one of these. I can't remember what it's called, but it has a space. It has hooks on either side, and then it's a 2-piece system, so you just screw it together right there where that screw hole is, and you put your beard in there. You can put your shotgun shell and whatever you want to do. These are pretty cheap too. I can't remember what they are, but they're listed below. So then you just screw it into the back. And if it's too skinny, here's a little trick I'll show you lastly before I wrap this up. So a little trick is if there's not enough space, if your like fan doesn't fill it up enough, you can just use like a bottle cap as a shim right there. That's what I did. It fit perfectly. All right, guys. Well, other than that, it's a pretty simple process. Hope you learned something. Hope you get a chance to utilize it this year when you get a bird. We'll be going out next weekend. It's pretty rough weather around here, but it should be good next weekend. In the meantime, go out there and chirp at some gobblers if you see them on the side of the road, and happy hunting.